Okay, let's begin with the World's Patch 25.20. This will also be the patch where EMEA Masters will be played for the rest of the playoffs, essentially. So, really big patch for the competition. This is going to be the last official one. Let's begin with some streamer mode improvements, apparently, with what they are trying to show here. And some NA and OCE experiments that they want to do by banning highlight overs, basically. Let's begin with champions, which is what we came for. Anivia Q cooldown is going down. This is a really good change for Anivia. Or cooldown on Q is usually very high, and this going down for 1 second is really, really good for Anivia. And the frost bite damage going up is quite fine, going up by 5, but the really big deal is the Q going down by 1. Way better than the 5 extra damage. It's also a nice change, but overall a good Anivia buff, I would say. Azir, W rise AP ratio is going up, but the recharge rate is going to be increased. Initially, this is a huge nerf for Azir, especially because his damage to additional targets is going to be flattened to 20% until level 8. And then it's plus 8% per level. It's a huge nerf when it comes to wave clear for Azir. Also, his soldier spawn is going to be flawed. So, due to being 2 seconds more during laning phase, I think even though the AP ratio goes up in later stages, it's still concerning, because of early game. I think this will affect this Azir a lot, especially when transitioning to mid game. So this is a huge nerf for Azir, despite his damage going up on E as well, because this is not a reliable source. Of course, it's some damage, but in comparison to how reliable his W is, well, his laning phase is heavily hit for sure. Briar maximum stacks goes down by 2. Okay, whatever. Camille armor growth goes down by 0.5. This is a huge deal because we're talking about a melee champion that likes to go in a lot, but they're trying to make up for it by reducing cooldown on W and trying to give her more sustain, more so, with the base damage also being increased. Not sure how I feel about this change. I feel like Camille is in a spot where she's really hard to fit in the meta, especially with how the champions are developing, and honestly, I don't feel like Camille will show, at least for early Fearless World matches. If Camille appears, it's in a very particular state where they play some comp with Nocturne, Galio, or play versus very vulnerable immobile carries, where she could be good, but definitely not in the early Fearless. If she will appear, it will for sure be Game 4, Game 5 Fearless in very specific scenarios. When it comes to solo queue, well, I do think the armor growth is quite a big chunk, but the W will help a lot when it will help a bit when it comes to sustain. Fizz W, a lot of changes for Fizz. So let's read what they want to shift initially. Semi-safe following, it is currently reliant on snowballing. That's true, and his base damage is appropriate in the early game, but generally don't scale well without gold. We're looking to make some power positive adjustments to make him less reliant on snowballing, while still asking him to build primarily AP assassin items. As a whole, these changes should be positive for his upfront W burst damage, make his ultimate a bit weaker, and open up a few new item choices. I think they're talking about like Fire Torch Fizz, perhaps. W, passive damage over time is going down by 5% AP, but the base damage is going up. So yeah, as they said, they want to increase the flat amount values and nerf the scaling. This is fine for Snowball Fizz. Active burst damage is going up in the flat value, and on-hit damage also going up in base. Double, by the way, in level 1, and then it goes up by 5 each time, right? So 20, 15, oh, it's 10 every level. Never mind, it's 10 every level. I'm tweaking. And then it goes down by 5% AP. So yeah, it's the more AP you build on Fizz, the worse it's going to be after, but the real deal is you want to snowball with Fizz. If you have a winning early game with Fizz and you are able to snowball, that is enough for you to have a good transition for mid game and potentially win the match. So that is what Fizz wants to do. Snowball and just be really obnoxious in early states. Goopy damage going up in flat and lowered. All the scalings are going down and all the bases are going up, essentially. And when it comes to ultimate value, the Gigalodon damage is going down by 30 by level 6, so the ultimate will actually be weaker all around, as they said. And eventually it will go up, but yeah, 30% AP difference. This is going to be a nerf, of course, when it comes to ultimate. So basically, they're trying to make Fizz snowball more. Is E still going to be the max, of course? W going to be second max. So yeah, let's see how Fizz changes actually go into live. I would assume his win rate is going up by a bit. That is my perspective, especially because he's a counter pick usually, or played by OTPs. Q end of the line, Graves. Initial damage 45 goes up by 5, also reducing bonus AD. So what they're trying to do is snowball champions are getting more base values and getting worse scaling essentially. Secondary damage also going up in flat amount and lowered in scaling amount. Combined damage also going up in flat amount and going down in the percentage amount. So yes, all across the board, this is a nerf essentially. They showed the combined damage, and yeah, it's all around the nerf for later stage Graves, but early game you can get to try and snowball more basically. So early game buff, mid late game it will be a nerf, mainly late game. Katarina +4 armor. This is kind of scary buff to Katarina because some of her bad matchups into AD champions in mid lane. This can actually help her quite a lot, even though she plays mostly against mages. If she plays against a melee AD champion or against Corki Tristana, she will have a much easier time. 4 armor is a lot, especially per auto attack that the enemy champion can provide, right? So this is definitely 0.5 or 1% win rate on Katarina, or even more. I would say probably even more, to be honest. Depends. Malphite +3 armor as well, instead of 4. Base damage is going up by 10. So yeah, they're trying to buff Malphite. Is still going to be like very dependent on his matchup. Some might say, okay, just play Malphite support with this buff. I mean, if he has this amount of armor, it can be a scenario and a possibility in in some games. But yeah, in all seriousness and normal conditions, normal situations, I would say that Malphite is still a niche pick despite this nice buff given to him. Orianna doubly damage is going to be lowered, but then you have plus 10% AP. This is basically to make sure that Orianna is not as obnoxious initially. And I do believe that now you will want to max Q first. There were some matchups where you would max W until 5, some specific matchups until 7 or 9, but this time, with this nerf being given by 40 damage at level 9, you definitely don't want to put 5 levels in W. The maximum you want to put in W is maybe 2, but you should actually max Q first. Maximum 2 points in W and then shift into Q. If you really want to, for example, you want to pressure level 3, then you put Q, W, W, and then you can shift immediately into E, Q, R, Q, W, Q. Or Q, Q, sorry, instead of W at level 8. So yeah, Q max after. Pantheon monster damage modifier 0.8. I mean, his clear is way too slow. I doubt... I do believe that he can show up at Worlds, but his clear finishes around 330 as far as I'm concerned. So it's a bit tight. And I do believe that even though he will appear sometimes, he will not be a priority pick at all. A Veigar change. They are giving him AP ratio. I mean, this is a great buff for Veigar. This is what Veigar needs. He needs damage with his stacks. So W damage is quite reliable. And this changes a lot the way you can actually max abilities on a Veigar. I'm sure Veigar V2, Nemesis, Veigar players will explain it better than I can. But yeah, it kind of shifts the way you want to max Veigar all across the board, and it gives him a lot of damage reliability when it comes to mid-late game transition. So this is a big buff for Veigar, a huge win for Veigar, to be fair. We're talking 10% to a champion that scales a lot of raw AP. So big W for Veigar dispatch. Volibear, minus 5% AP ratio, minus 10% AP ratio. Okay. They're dropping his early game aggressiveness. Volibear is quite a strong jungler for duels. Warwick, attack damage growth is going down and also attack speed. I mean, sure, this will not change much. To be fair, it's a placebo change. Wukong, one of the most OP champions in the patch, bonus damage, bonus AD ratio, the double bonus, is going down by 5% bonus AD. And the cooldown on W is going up by 2. I don't think this cooldown really matters that much when it comes to jungle, because you usually use W once per fight or once per skirmish. And clone damage is going to be lowered by 5%. All across the board, we have some changes to him. His E is going to be increased in damage, so they're trying to make up for the W nerf and the Q nerf as well. But yeah, all around is going to lose some damage, and he's going to drop some win rates. But I think the E damage also is quite big. So I do think Wukong will still be a priority pick, and he will be fine, and he will be heavily prio into Worlds and also EMEA Masters in new patch. This is a big change. Top lane detection, basically for lane swaps. For those who don't know, you would have ADCs going top, and then supports would lane with top laners or mid laners essentially in bot, and then they would shift into mid at 215, and then play one wave in mid, try to look for a cheese or lane in bot, look to recall or look to cross into mid, and then go top at 3 minutes essentially and just hit the mark. This is going to change the way you're going to play swaps for a bit. It's going to shift a bit of how you want to approach top side. So yeah, the swaps are going to be trickier, and we will see how it will land in the new patch. Doom bot changes, and yeah, basically that is it for the new patch. Let's make a really quick TLDR of what will matter, because this patch doesn't seem to have too much, basically. But yeah, let's look into it. Overall, Anivia, this is a nice change. I think Anivia can show in maybe 3 to 5 games in Worlds, I would say. I think we're going to see Anivia sometimes, but she's a reactive pick. She's not a blind pick champion. She's a reactive pick into a certain composition. So, yeah, she's just not blind pickable like that. Azir will drop a lot in priority. I do believe it will still be played, but it will drop a lot in priority. I do believe that it will be extremely weak because of this change. So, despite the 10% AP buff, the recharge rate and the damage wave clear, it's going to be massive for early game Azir, especially when Hui and other mages are in really good state. And I think Orianna, even though she will pivot into Qmax, she will be less picked, but she will still be strong as a champion, and Azir will drop more in priority. That's my guess. Briar, no one fucking cares. Camille, only game 4, game 5 fearless, but even then, this is a big nerf. They're trying to compensate, but I don't know how this will end. I think it's a small change. Fizz will look to snowball more in early, but his late game scaling will be worse, so he has to snowball. Otherwise, he won't function, and that is Fizz's identity, essentially. Same for Graves, he wants to snowball more, so where his base damage is going up and scaling value is going down. Katarina, quite a big buff, especially into AD matchups. Malphite support, perhaps, sometimes to be played into certain compositions, but top lane it will be still a very niche pick overall. Orianna, now you shift into Qmax. The maximum you want to do is QWW, and then you shift into E, Q, R, and then Q, 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 and then W. So you want to max Q first, or maximum 2 points in W to try to snatch some extra damage by level 3. Because then it decreases by a lot when you max forward. Pantheon will be played sometimes, but I do believe that he will be definitely not a prior pick in comparison to most junglers. So yes, it might appear, but not as a priority pick, I would say. Veigar, really nice change. We have to consider that Veigar scales with raw AP, so this is a big change. 10% is a lot, especially when it comes to later stages. And check Veigar V2 and Nemesis explanation, but I do believe that his max ability order is going to be shifted because of this as well. Volibear, 5% AP ratio -10. I mean, it will still be fine despite being less obnoxious. Warwick, no one cares. Placebo nerf, I would say, overall. And Wukong, this is an overall nerf, but the E damage is going up so much that I don't think this really matters. You only use W once per fight or skirmish. And yeah, you will lose some damage here, but I think this will compensate. Wukong will still be a prio pick, basically. And this is the biggest change as well. Top lane detection will be up by 1 minute, so we will see how this lands. This is the patch that will be played. I remind you guys, I'm sorry, it will be played for Worlds and also EMEA Masters during playoffs, so stay tuned for the competitions, and good luck in solo queue as well. I'll see you guys in the 25.21 as well. See you guys.